Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, everyone. We hope that those breakout sessions were as engaging and as fun as we certainly anticipated that they would be. We're going to hold just for a few more minutes, give everyone a chance to get back in the room. Our second part of our main session here is going to be a lot of fun and very intriguing and interesting. We want to make sure everyone is back in the room and ready to go before we get started. And yeah, so thank you so much for heading on back, and we'll get started in just a few more minutes. Welcome back, everyone. It's your host, Austin. We're just going to hold for just a few more minutes, let everyone get back from those breakout sessions, get back in before we get started. I've got a really, really great session, second session here lined up for you here in the afternoon. So we want to give everyone a chance to get logged back in and get ready before we get started. Thank you. All right, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much. We hope that the second session, those breakout sessions, were fun and engaging. We're going to kick off the second session with a little bit of founders therapy with the founder of Inkwell Yoga, Christopher Simmons. Christopher?
Hello, Austin. And hello, Sydney. I have to recognize Sydney. She and I were really talking about this for the last seemingly year in making this a reality. I am thrilled beyond belief to have the opportunity to share the experience of the ancient art of yoga with you. Let me make a confession right here. I am as confused as perhaps many of you are living this life in the 21st century, as it were, online, Zoom, yes. I would prefer to be on the beach with you in Edgartown doing it the way we originally wanted to do it. But since we're here, let's be here. I can't see you, but I'm thinking you can see me. This is going to be interesting, so bear with me. My part here is to really talk about yoga. So when I teach this from the very beginning, it's over a length of 3 hours through 3 classes. So I'm going to squeeze all of that into about 3 hours. Yes, we have 3 hours to do it. No, 15 minutes. All right, so let's start. When one asks what is yoga in the West, the first thing we recognize yoga as is Lululemon getting us some stretch pants and getting us some nice proper shorts to really start working on getting our foot behind our head. That's yoga. And that's the reason many of us have never even tried to do it. But actually, yoga is a whole lot more than that. Yoga can begin with a definition as given by a gentleman by the name of Patanjali, who wrote what's called the Yoga Sutras. It's 4 chapters of aphorisms. And in chapter 1, verse 1, he says, now what is yoga? Now is the study of yoga. In verse 2, he says, yoga is the cessation of the mind. I bet you weren't expecting that, were you? You were not expecting yoga to be something physical. You were expecting it to be something physical, not really mental. But it actually is mental. It is about the unifying. The classical definition of yoga is the unifying of the mind, the body, and the spirit. In those Yoga Sutras, as I was studying it, one writer by the name of Osho, he said that in order for yoga to work for you, you must quit or give up on everything else in your life. Now, being a boy from the South, a PK, preacher's kid, you know, yoga is one of those things that were kind of over there. And so when I read that, I actually read the paragraph again, made sure I was understanding what I was hearing. And then it said it again. In order for yoga to work for you, you must give up on everything else. So I closed the book and I never practiced yoga again for 6 months. Why was I there? I was actually studying Tai Chi before I started that. But who in the world would dare tell me to give up on everything else? You're telling me to give up on my religion, my faith, and all of this. Too weird, so I put it aside. But I really didn't put it aside. What I started thinking about was, what am I actually holding on to? And that's where my work really began, really learning how to sift through things in life. Let me run through a couple of points here. In the Yoga Sutras, he lays out that there are 8 limbs of yoga. The first limb is what's called yamas. It's like 5 of the 10 commandments, 5 things you don't do. Don't hurt others, don't lie, and don't use your energy unnecessarily. Don't be covetous, and that type of thing. Those are called yamas, the first limb of yoga. The second limb of yoga is a niyama, which focuses on the inside. Cleanliness on the inside, contentment on the inside, studying subject matter, that which you are really working on. And then work like your hair is on fire, and then release. Now that releasing part is when you are like a farmer. You have gone out into the field, you have plowed the field, you have disked, you've sowed your seed, you've fertilized, you've watered, but there's nothing else you can do but wait. You have to wait for the actual growth to take place. And it says, surrender unto the Lord. And I think because I'm saying Lord now, I need to say this here. Yoga is not a religion. Let me compare it this way. Yoga is probably to you as much of a religion as brushing your teeth. Do you consider that a religion? But you do it every day. You do it for a purpose, for making sure your teeth stay with you a lot longer and breath clean and, getting along with others. Yoga has the ability to do that as well for you. So one of the limbs of yoga is yama. The second is niyama. The third is actually asana. That's what we see in the West as being yoga. It is actually the physical practice. The poses in yoga are called asana poses. That word asana, the etymology of it goes back in the Vedas of the writing to mean to sit. And sitting does not mean like I'm doing in this chair, but to find stillness. So that's asana. The fourth limb of yoga is pranayama. That's what we're going to get to in a moment using a breath exercise. The fifth is pratyahara, which is basically control of the senses. 6 is concentration. 7 is meditation. And 8 is samadhi. Samadhi being enlightenment, getting there. And we're all trying to get there. So with the 8 limbs of yoga, there are 2 parts that we're going to look at. The fourth being a breath exercise, and then the 7th being meditation. Now, let me jump to meditation quick before I come back to the breath exercise. I'm beginning to hear, and so are you, and it's a part of the conference today, which is everybody's trying to get to meditation, even using softer words like mindfulness. Yes, mindfulness, being aware of what's going on, settling down. But most of us who have tried to meditate, whether it's by listening to a YouTube or listening to a podcast of meditating, that's all guided. We'll do a little bit of that as well. But what I want to suggest is, if I were to ask you, what is the definition of meditation? What would you say? Don't everybody speak at once. Nobody's saying anything. Okay. My definition for the theist, those of God-believing senses, meditation is when the breath of God blows the debris from your original self. Huh? If you hear that again, make sure they quote me. That's mine. Yes, when the breath of God blows the debris from your original self, or when the winds of heaven sweeps out the closets of our lives. Yes, that's what we're wanting, to get to who we really are. We struggle with that. And remember, the definition of yoga is to unify the mind, the body, and the spirit. And if I were to ask you, who are you? Are you who you see in the mirror? Or are you, as Rene Descartes would say, I think, therefore I am, because of your mind? Is that who you are? You are your mind? Dare I say, are you your job? Everybody we talk to, well, what do you do for a living? Well, I do this and so. So we put them in a little category. We put them in a box. But there's still a part of us that we really want to get to. And we'll talk about that maybe on the beach next year. You reckon, huh?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, somebody said amen. So
amen. I'll be there.
So what we're wanting to do then, what we're wanting to do now is get to a place of identification. So let's begin. Let's see. I don't know what my time is. Somebody's going to help me. The lady with the amen, will you help me with time? You have unmuted yourself, so you work with me with time, okay? So
Yeah,
let me
and then also the other people can turn on their videos if they'd like, so you could see them, just so you can engage with them. We've let them in the room so they can turn on their videos.
I'd be beside myself with glee. Thank you, Flo. I see Flo, but I don't see nobody else. But Celissa, bless your heart. Okay, let's get started. I got to stay with my time now. Let's go back to number 4 of the 8 limbs of yoga, pranayama. Prana is one of what the Asian Indians, through Hinduism, they take prana as an ultimate life force, an energy that rides the breath. And many of you have heard and have not pursued, because maybe you're like I am. We've come through a different track and we leave a lot of stuff alone, like chakras. You've heard it, but not pursued it. Let me run through 7 of them. At the base of the spine, there is what's called the Muladhara, the base chakra. And then there is mid-pelvis, another chakra called Swadhisthana, which is our creativity. The 3rd chakra is around the navel center. That particular energy center is suggested to be Manipura, meaning city of jewels. And the one that we're going to stop at today is going to be the heart chakra, Anahata, and that means compassion. The 5th chakra is the one in the throat, Vishuddha, communication, to articulate. The 6th chakra is the one at the eyebrow center, not where my finger is touching my head, but in the center, the pituitary gland region, where sits the Agnya chakra, your intuition, or some people say the 3rd eye. Now, I give you all of those 6 energy centers because what we're going to do together is what's called Nadi Shodhanam, which is an alternate nostril breathing. It is certainly good for you, especially if you have allergy issues. But finding the breath is really important, and bringing yourself within to get to a place of trying to be able to get on the pathway to meditation, it will start here. Now, let me say something about that really quickly. In order to meditate, you want to be sitting comfortably, meaning grounded. You want to be lifted up through your spine. If we're on the beach or if we were outside somewhere, I would have us to go through a sun salutation to relax the body, to make sure our body is comfortable and satisfied, having done a bit of exercise so that it can relax. And then the next thing we would do is try to satisfy our minds, meaning relaxing it, giving it exercise. And the exercise the mind needs is something to do. If I had time, I would describe what Robert Elwood suggest about the mind. There are 3 different types of mind. There is the sloth mind that moves slowly and very pessimistic, the cow mind, which chews the cud and always looking at something negative, not happy about being here, but don't want to die. And then there is the monkey mind, jumping from one thing to the other. And that's what most of us suffer from, monkey mind. And what do we say? I can't meditate because my mind jumps all over the place. Well, guess what? You want your mind to be able to jump because that's what it does. It thinks. But here, for this purpose, we want it to relax, and we're going to give it an exercise so that it can relax. And to begin with, We're going to breathe in and out through our nose. So play along with me. Show me your right hand. Now, I can't see anybody here. I see Flo hand. Thank you, Flo. Thank you, Celissa. Y'all playing along. Don't fool me. No, keep your right hand up. Keep your right hand up. I would have you to put your hand on the book and say, this guy is cool, but I can't do it. I don't have time to do that. So turn your palm toward you. Right. Now, bend your index finger. Now, the index finger, we're having you to bend because that's the finger you use to tell somebody off. So we're going to bend it down, right? And then we're going to bend the middle finger down because that's the finger people use to tell you off, right? I know you don't use it, no, but folks tell you off with it. So we're going to bend both of them down. Take your right thumb and close your right nostril. Don't press the nose onto the other side of the face. Just close the right nostril. Lift up through your spine, inhaling and exhaling. Just breathe through your left nostril. It's important that we do this together just to practice because some of you are afraid to do it. You're saying, that guy with that bandana, I got to be careful. He will turn me into a frog. So we just got to make sure that he's on the up and up. So just take your time and inhale and exhale through the right nostril and that you don't turn into a frog. Now take your ring finger and close the left nostril and release the right and breathe through the right nostril. Yeah. Just breathe. You want to be breathing through the nostril, inhaling and exhaling. Wonderful. Fantastic. Awesome. Now we're going to alternate. Inhale through your right nostril, close the right, exhale out the left. Inhale through the left, close the left, exhale out the right. Inhale through the right, close the right, exhale out the left. Inhale through the left, close the left, exhale out the right. Inhale through the right and release your hand and just breathe. Now, that was our practice session right there. Okay, we're going to come back to it in a second. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a look at your mind really quick. This is not going to take long. We're going to practice. I want to show you your mind really quick. It's only going to take 6 breaths, okay? Inhaling and exhaling through the nose is 1 breath, okay? I'm going to have you to do 6. I'm going to have you to close your eyes, inhale, exhale, 1. Inhale, exhale out the nose, 2. Okay, don't start. I want you to start together. And if you lose count, start over. Okay? Okay, here you go. Close your eyes and begin. Now I'm thinking that you all are pretty close to finish or starting over. Here is what this exercise was about. I would, if we were together and I could really call on you one at a time, I would be interested in knowing, did you really make it to 6? 1. 2, I'd be curious as to how much of a struggle was it to stay focused to get to 6. Now, listen, if you don't remember anything else I said or whatever else we are about to do, what you just did is really the beginning of getting toward meditation. The only thing different you would do is go to 10. And once you get to 10, without losing count, being honest with you, you would go backwards. And every time you discover that your mind has wandered, you would come back to the breath and count again. Take that with you if you don't remember anything else about finding the quiet mind. All right? So there we are. Now we are about now to go through and use our mudra, which is the lock, and breathe. I'm going to guide you through this. I'm trusting you to keep your eyes closed. I'm going to guide you with your breath, inhaling in, and the breath is going to be going up and down. Find your rhythm of breathing and stay with it. Trust what you hear. Listen to your body. Now, let me say something about the breath. If we were together and I had more time to teach, I would teach you diaphragmatic breathing. And what that is 5 characteristics that we try to promote in breathing. 1, we like to promote your breath being smooth. We want your breath to be even. Even does not mean the same length as the inhalation length, 3 seconds, exhalation, 5 seconds, no, but maintaining the same. We want your breath to be deep. We want your breath to be without noise. And we want your breath to be without pause. One breath flowing into the other. Those are the 5 characteristics. So here we go. We're about to get started. But if we were together, we would exercise and satisfy the body. But I'm thinking your body is already satisfied and relaxed. You're lifted through your spine, you're seated and your hips are grounded down, your feet are grounded down, you're feeling really good and lifted. Just be there now, long and extended. Are we ready? Okay, let's go. Create your mudra, turning your hand toward you. Bend your index finger and your middle finger, okay? Inhale deeply. Exhale, right thumb to the right nostril and exhale out the left nostril. Close your eyes. Inhale through the left. Close the left nostril. Exhale out the right. Inhale through the right. Close the right. Exhale out the left. Inhale through the left. Close the left. Exhale out the right. Inhale through the right. Close the right. Exhale out the left. Inhale through the left. Close the left. Exhale out the right. Inhale through the right. Close the right. Exhale out the left. Last one. Inhale through the left. Close the left. Exhale out the right. Inhale through the right. Release the mudra. Eyes closed. Exhale. Bring your awareness to the base of the nostrils, inhaling and exhaling. Notice a difference between the right nostril and the left nostril. One is more active than the other. Bring your awareness to the active nostril and breathe as though it's the only nostril. Shift your awareness to the passive nostril or the other nostril and breathe as though it's the only nostril. Bring your awareness to the center of both nostrils and breathe as though there's only one nostril. Feel the cool across the roof of the nostril as you inhale. Let the breath flow, inhaling and exhaling, feeling the coolness across the nostril as you inhale and the warmth as you exhale. Inhale into the back of the throat. Don't hold the breath, just breathe. Giving the mind something to do. Just inhaling into the back of the throat. Inhale into the back of the throat and exhale down to the navel center. Inhale up to the throat center. Exhale down to the navel center. Just go up and down at your own pace. Now, inhale up to the throat center. Exhale down to the heart center. Inhale up to the throat center. Exhaling down to the heart center. Let your awareness and your breath rest at the heart center. Inhaling and exhaling at the heart center. If your mind wanders when you discover it, don't beat yourself up. Just come back to the heart center.
Two minutes.
Compassion. Nice. Inhale up to the throat center. Exhale out the nose.
Two minutes.
Just breathe. Tap into the calm that's near and slowly open the eyes. Senses fresh, mind calmer, body relaxed. Thank you for letting me be your guide. I do trust, hope, and pray your practice blesses your mind, blesses your body, blesses your spirit with a deep and abiding peace. Namaste.
Thank you, Christopher. We will launch our poll right now. If the moderator could launch the poll. And I just tried to share a few pictures from last year on Martha's Vineyard with Christopher and our attendees at last year's conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Christopher. That was an absolutely reinvigorating, excellent presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that.
If we could move the attendees to the regular room so they can vote, that would be great. If they can do the poll.
Sure, give me one moment.
Christopher, do you have any more comments you'd like to make as we're closing out? attendees, hopefully that was very relaxing for you and it helped you center as founders. We do a whole lot and we miss like those quiet moments that we really need to meditate, center ourselves, and give us that energy that we need in order to really move forward in our work. So I hope this was something that really helped you. And these are the types of things that we try to bring to every conference so the founders can get that balance in their life, because we were doing great things and trying to solve big world problems. And in order for us to be the best at what we do, we have to have that balance. Austin, how's the poll coming along?
That's good. Everyone, we've gotten mostly everyone voted. Session was really good. A lot of folks really appreciated this session.
Thank you.
Really great. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you guys for the invite. I think I'm out.
Yeah, Christopher, I wanted to let me just put on my video really quick so you could see me. I haven't had a chance to talk to you because Sydney was coordinating everything with you, but I go to your events on the beach every time I'm there at the Inkwell. So thank you for agreeing to participate with our conference. It means so much to me, and we definitely will see you on the island next year and doing it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invite. I enjoyed it very much, and I do hope that it was helpful.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you, Christopher. All right, everyone, moving right along. We're gonna head on over to understand the partnership role of banks, especially post-pandemic, with head of private banking, wealth advisory, and wine at Silicon Valley Bank, Yvette Butler. Yvette?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, I caught the last, 15 minutes of that session, and it always amazes me that I forget to exhale. And when I reflect on what allows me to get that, relaxation and quiet moments that you need to make really good decisions is the information, the tea, the data, whatever you want to call it. So today I'm going to share with you just a lot of information about bank partnerships and how you can leverage them for your advantage. And because I want to share so much data with you, we have a lot to cover, but please slow me down when there's something that piques your interest or you want clarification on, and we'll dig in. So this is very scary. They gave me the controls, which actually is a problem. Hold on one quick second. Somehow my document closed. Sorry about that. It'll take a second for me to get it back.
Yvette, how are you? This is Salisa. Thank you. While we're waiting for that to come back up, just wanted to thank you again. I thank Silicon Valley Bank for being our unicorn sponsor. It's because of you and your organization being behind women founders that we're able to deliver this quality programming to our founders to help elevate their businesses to the next level. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking out the time. I know you're super busy.
No, happy to be here, and wish it could be in Martha's Vineyard like it was last year. That was fantastic, and eager to get back. But I think,
Yep. Ready to go?
We're all ready. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. So in case, I know some of you work with Silicon Valley Bank, and again, I'm here just to tell you all that a great banking partnership provide. But specifically for those who don't know as much about us, we exclusively focus on the innovation ecosystem. So that includes all the things in this circle, from private equity, founders, entrepreneurs, venture capital, capital markets, management teams, angel investors, really the whole thing that, as they like to say in the Valley, gets the flywheel turning. So just so for clarification, we have 4 divisions. What most people know is Silicon Valley Bank. That's our commercial banking for innovators, enterprises, and investors. Then we have SVB Capital, which invests both directly in the innovation economy and also through a fund of funds through top VCs that we're partnered with. We have quite a few funds that are up and open for fundraising right now. Then I'll skip to the far right, SVB Leerink. We bought an investment bank focused on health sciences last year, obviously doing very well right now with all of the energy around finding a vaccine and other health issues. And then finally, the division I run, which is SVB Private Bank and Wealth Advisory. So let's jump right in. And again, this is all about sharing data and information because I feel like that'll empower you and make you stronger, whether you're a investor or a founder or part of a startup. So this is the updated data around the seed round. So the Series Seed is after the pre-seed, which is usually a proof of concept. And now you're preparing to launch your company into its minimal viable product. And that's when you raise the Series Seed. So as you can see, what's really interesting, if you look at the August 2020 data, is look how much wider the bands are. So that shows there's more variability in both the pre-money valuations and the capital invested, but the midpoints are about the same. So both last year and this year, the average pre-money valuation was about $8 million, and the capital invested is about $2.5 million. So that's the average capital raised in a Series Seed, but it can vary all the way up to 4 million or as low as 1 million. Moving right along into the Series A, pre-money valuations have also gone up a little bit, which is counterintuitive. But as you have seen, there's just a race for capital to great ideas, even in the midst of COVID. Our August data shows that the median pre-money valuation for the Series A is about 30 million. And it goes as high as 40 and down to 23. And the capital invested on average has been about 8.5 million in the Series A round. And as you can see, obviously the rounds go up as you get further and further along. Here in the Series A, this is really considered the institutional round and looking for product market fit and hopefully revenue, but not necessarily, and some distraction, meaning the market is signaling that they're interested in both the problem that you've identified and your solution to that problem. Now, one of the things that's so important in thinking about your banking relationship, I think we all recognize that banks help us run our businesses and, collect revenue and manage accounts and pay bills. But if I leave you with anything today, I think I want everyone to think about leveraging their bank to maintain more equity in their business. So again, this gives you just a lot of information. As you can see, the different colored lines represent the various seeds. And then it is showing what percent of the company that you gave up in order to get your funding. So in 2016, for a Series A, that top line in 2016, it was about 27%. A founder gave up about 27% on average of the median amount of their firm for a Series A. And then all the way now to 2020, it's gone down a little bit to 24%. But I think one of the mistakes I see people of color making when financing our firm is that we obviously don't have the rich uncle, most of us don't. And so therefore, we're just really looking for capital and give up more than we can. Now, keep in mind, what's most important is keeping your company going. But again, making sure that you have the data to know that you're giving up a little bit more is, I think, part of education, and always getting smarter and commanding more negotiating power at the table. One of the trends that we're seeing in the market is that family offices are starting to have just an incredible amount of influence and participation in the innovation economy. If you go to the SVB website today, you'll see that we just launched a family office study out of SVB Capital, which is just phenomenal. And you can take a look at that. And I would encourage you to go to that site in general, because there's all kinds of research and information such that as I've been sharing with you today. And what we found is about 60% of family offices are participating in the innovation economy, many of them doing direct investing. And they're also another way to keep a little bit more equity in your firm, because it's longer term money and it's very patient money. So we really see this effort by family offices to get alpha, which is above market returns, by getting in earlier, has really become a phenomenon. So there's been 10 times growth in family offices for the last 10 years. 10,000 is the total number of family office globally, and 4 trillion of assets are managed by the family offices. So really becoming just a huge source of investment dollars. And as I just mentioned, family offices are increasingly active. Obviously, it's gone down a little bit so far in 2020. We probably recover a little bit more of that, but around 400 deals a year, pretty consistently high 300s over the last several years. So they are quiet, but very active, and like to co-invest often with venture funds that they trust, primarily because obviously you get the help in advising the founder and the company and all the vetting and due diligence. So it really has become a partnership. So there's other ways to use your bank besides getting information and data. So I'm going to talk about a couple of non-equity financing types. So this is a list of them, but we will run through them really quickly. Again, just send me a chat if you have any questions and I will address it. So the first one is a venture debt loan with warrants. And I think just to be aware that debt is an option. And so the business profile here is raised a minimum of $3.5 million in your Series A, or sometimes the seed, and that there's at least 1 or 2 institutional investors that have vetted the company and have placed their bet with their money, walked using their own dollars. The benefits are there's no covenants and no restrictions on the use of the debt proceeds. It's less expensive than equity. And again, it saves dilution for founders and execs. So it also tells you a little bit about the terms and structure. You can get about 20 to 25% in debt of the size of the latest equity round. And again, there's no covenants. And, although it's not something that you want to think about, but it is a forgivable loan. Repayment schedule gives you a little information on the draw period, 9 to 18 months, and it's interest only, usually for about 9 to 18 months, at which point you start paying principal as well. The next lending type is monthly recurring revenue. And this is for a business profile with a minimum of $15,000 in $15,000 in monthly recurring revenue. It can be both pre and post equity, and gross margins greater than 50%. And you have to have at least 10 clients. Obviously, very focused also on institutional, because 10 is not a lot of retail clients, but just to give you a profile of this kind of lending. The benefit is you get access to credit before your equity round. Your growth capital or runway extension leads you into a Series A. So it's a nice bridge to get a little bit more runway and to get a little bit more traction. There's no equity requirement, personal guarantee, or board seat required. Over on the right, a little bit about terms and structure, 3 to 4 year maturity and no covenants. And again, you would get a detailed term sheet, and a lot of that is also up for negotiation, but we wanted to give you kind of the standard parameters of monthly recurring revenue lending. The next is what is normally considered factoring. So this is any company with revenues that generate invoices. You basically are lending against your invoices. So the benefit is instead of waiting to chase down those invoices and closing them, you get paid within 48 hours. No repayments of principal debt, and it frees up more cash for investment because you're getting paid quicker. It's non-dilutive way to take advantage of closed deals. And it also, provides short-term financing to cover cash swings. So again, you don't have to raise an equity round just to manage the ebbs and flows of day-to-day business. But again, this is for a business that generates invoices. And the only other thing, kind of most important distinction to make in the terms and the structure is that they buy your invoice at a discount. And that's how they make, how the bank makes their money. The next is equipment financing, and this is for companies with significant hardware component. So this can be manufacturing equipment to servers, to iPads, to computers. It's probably a little less likely to be office furniture, given that we're all working from home. It's again stage agnostic, but it needs some liquidity, and sometimes you need to have, and often that's true of a lot of deal structures, you have to have some deposits on hand just to kind of make it easier to make payments and to qualify for the loan. And then ultimately, the lender purchased the equipment and you are leasing it back. So this is another, just depending on the profile of your company and what kind of business you're in, there's so many ways to partner with your bank and leverage debt and financing to grow your business. And then our final example is a consumer company financing. The requirements here are 250 to as much as 10 million in revenue a year. These loans are only US based right now. And you have to have at least 1 year operating history and need to be seed stage and beyond. So the benefits here, it finances inventory, working capital, ad spend, all of those fundamental elements you need to run a consumer company. It can sometimes fund purchase orders. And like most of these options, it's far less dilutive than equity. So the size here is anywhere from 20K to as much as 5 million. And you get an advance rate on inventory or structured on your sales history. And again, you have to have at least 1 year of operating history to leverage a loan like this. So why don't I take a quick stop there and check in to see if there's any questions just on financing a startup in any of those various categories before I move more to the personal side. All right, we'll move on to the private bank and wealth advisory side, the personal side, your personal wealth, which is also important to have data and to tend to. So what we decided to do here was a couple of case studies. This one, the founder is married and has 1 child, has 350 in brokerage assets, primary residence value of 1 million and a first mortgage of 500K. 250K in retirement assets, 10K in savings, and 15,000 of credit card debt. So this is what, in this scenario, your balance sheet would look like, right? We have both total assets of 1.26 million, total liability of 515,000. And so your net worth here in this example is 745,000, which is a rich example. But we just thought it's always good to have a good aspiration example to think about how to balance your net worth and how to manage it with your bank. So financial planning for founders, one of the most important things is to engage early before you have even a balance sheet, as the example had highlighted. And that's because it's so important to structure your company correctly. So for example, there is an option called qualified business exemption, which allows you, if structured correctly, and you have your founder's equity for at least 5 years, when you have a capital event, you can shelter as much as $10 million from federal taxes and potentially state taxes. So many of us, don't know about things like that. And if you're fortunate enough to get to a capital event, which I'm assuming everyone will, and that's exactly how you go into your companies expecting to get to that point, and then to find out that you're going to lose money in taxes that you didn't have to. So that's why it's so important, even before, like I said, you've gotten to this point, to reach out and really leverage your bank to make sure you're setting yourself up to be in the most advantageous position. So evaluate your balance sheet to identify sources of liquidity as a source of business funding or cash reserves. So we get asked a lot, how, I, again, don't have a rich uncle. How do I leverage what I have? I am a big believer personally in keeping your day job as long as possible, and therefore funding your company that way, and also getting to some at least live business that can be evaluated and invested in. And why I say that is that has gotten much easier. In the days where you had to have just hordes of engineers and servers and dedicated capacity, has really changed now that we can start businesses in the cloud. And it's so easy to go out there and get some signal from the marketplace that you're on the right track. So again, not everybody agrees with that, because the counter argument is that folks will say, well, are they really committed to their firm? But I think for us, if you're trying to manage both your business wealth and your personal wealth, which is what today's discussion is about, to me, that is the best way to de-risk that journey, and really move full-time to your startup when you start to bring in outside funding. Now, that's, again, my personal opinion. Not everyone agrees with it. And if you are fortunate enough to have a position where you don't have to worry so much about day-to-day expenses, then that's a blessing, and definitely go for it. So to identify sources of liquidity on your personal balance sheet, I just added one, which is, keep your day job. We talked about tax efficiency, really research and look into optimal ways to set up your company. For example, you can also set up your founder's shares so that you will not have to pay taxes as your shares vest, which is also really important to understand. And this is all when all you have is paper wealth. And really look at fees of what you're paying. On the investing side, I would say be careful that you're not overpaying to underperform. And I would lean heavily into passive investments like ETFs, and really make sure you're maxing out your 401k, because not only is that a way to, in a tax efficient way, save for the future, or even save for your startup, but it also has the company match, which in many ways is kind of free money that you should take advantage of. So general wealth planning needs, I talked about the qualified small business stock exemption. You can also do some gifting to minimize estate and gift taxes, and very much look at insurance. It's an important part to protect your personal assets and make sure that if for any reason something goes wrong in your company, that your personal assets are protected. So in this example, and probably in this order, you should, if we're looking for liquidity to get to that pre-seed round and to maintain your equity and to try to get the business so that it's alive, up in the market business before you start raising money, you can tap into the $350,000 diversified portfolio we showed in the example with a cost basis of $150,000. Keep in mind, in this example, if you liquidate all of that to invest in your company, your tax bill is going to be significant. So be prepared for that. But we want to make sure we give you the full information, because we know a lot of founders will go this route to take their at least a significant, if not all, of their life savings and invest it in their company, that it does have tax implications. Another opportunity, however, is you can also use your brokerage assets as collateral, what we call securities-based lending. And so in the example, instead of liquidating, you would keep that $350,000 invested with a heavy lean toward passive to keep your fees down, as I discussed. And then the firm could loan you anywhere from 50 to 70% of that value, depending on what you're invested in. So that's a really great way to get started. And the only thing else to be cognizant of is earlier in the year when we were just, COVID was just breaking out, the market was really, really volatile. And if you, let's say you had taken a loan for 70% and the market goes down a lot, they will do something called a call, and you'll have to either sell more of your portfolio in a down market, which you wouldn't want to do, or you'd have to put in the cash to get you back up to that 70. So that's just something else to be knowledgeable about when you're making these choices. But the benefits of securities-based lending is it's low cost of borrowing, it's tax efficient, brokerage assets can stay invested, and you're avoiding the long-term capital gains. And it's a revolving source of liquidity that you can tap in as needed as you get pre-approved of how much you can take out. Now, again, just keep in mind in a volatile market, this can have some other complications. So did I run out of time? I did. So why don't we just stop with that example and see if we have any questions?
I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions at all, please feel free. You can put them right into that Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll get them over to Yvette while she's here. And then Yvette, I think that polling is, I think, sitting right in the center of your screen. So if you mind, just move it to one side. There we go. So we've got some really important information everyone to see.
Yeah, while we were checking to see if there's any questions, these are just financial planning tips for founders. I think we talked about most of them. The only one we didn't hit or too quickly is estate planning. I'm ashamed to say I just got all of this done. I just moved from Potomac, Maryland to Los Angeles. And I think flying during COVID finally got me to sit down and get all this done. So don't, do as I say, not as I do. And, there's a really, I really encourage everyone to get the estate in order. And you might think, well, I don't have a lot right now, but even your home, as an example, if you don't have it all written down, goes through the state estate process, which could take years. And that's, I'm sure, not what you want for your intendants. And then education planning, really important to leverage 529s that allow you to save for your children's education or family members is just another important financial planning tool to kind of make sure everything is covered. And I think all the other categories we touched on.
We have a few more questions in the chat, and I know we're at time, but if we can have everyone complete the survey now. The poll is up, so if you can complete the poll, that would be great. And then could we get one more question in, Yvette?
Sure.
Yes, so one person asked, how does your credit score make a difference?
Your credit score, it depends on what you're asking. Personally, your credit score, it determines A, whether you're meeting the minimum criteria that the bank will lend against, and B, the price you pay. However, on the commercial side, your credit score is less important. And what they're really looking at is the dynamics of the business. And we ran through all different types of financing. On that commercial side, for your business, that is what matters, and not your personal credit score.
I'm actually going to throw a couple more questions up there just because I realized they don't have a chance to meet with you later. So another question was, what are the key elements in evaluating a financial advisor, especially as a founder?
That's a great question. So I think most importantly, we as an industry have made everything sound so complicated. And I don't personally think, uh, especially when you're focused on your business, I would focus on your investing on your business and find a banker you trust to help you grow that business. And on your investments, I would just do low cost ETFs and diversify, and save, as much as you can, max out your 401k. I actually wouldn't pay the fees of an advisor at that stage as a founder, but that's my personal opinion. And I think people think they need one because we've overcomplicated investing, but you absolutely need an advisor at a bank that you trust that can help you through pick the right tools of what we just went through, and manage the growth of your business and maintain as much equity as you can.
Exactly. And there's one last question, and then we will move to the next presentation. With COVID completely shifting the risk environment, what are some of the top questions you're hearing from your Silicon Valley Bank clients and founders right now?
I spent most of my career quickly just in the mass affluent range. So I was doing, retirement planning, helping folks with their 401ks, 529s, et cetera. Our customers now are very successful investors and tech execs. And I think the biggest thing about COVID is, and I think this is true of everyone, is they're reevaluating where they work. And if I'm going to work from home, I'm going to rethink what that home environment is like. And literally, some of them are moving to Idaho and Wyoming and all these places that you might not have imagined. But I think at all levels, people are rethinking, well, if I'm going to be spending this much time, because I'm not sure we'll ever go travel and go to work at the same level, it'll be different. People are investing in their home work environment.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Yvette. That was excellent. We really, really appreciate that. We appreciate that insight. It's always super valuable to have a professional like you on our side, right? This is definitely not something you learn at school.
No.
You got to seek it out. You know what I mean? You got to find the people who are invested in your success. And I know I really appreciate hearing everything you have to say. That was really excellent. Thank you.
I'm cheering you all on. Take care.
Appreciate it. All right, everyone. So we're going to move right along. Our next session is a fireside chat with Rochelle Parham on building your brand with moderator and philanthropist who is an entrepreneur, volunteer, activist in the New York City area on a mission to provide children's access to education, art, and culture. She's especially focused on creating opportunities for girls to thrive through exposure to arts education. And that is Caroline Cookie Mason. Welcome, Caroline, and welcome, Rochelle.
Hey, how are you?
Good, welcome.
Good, thank you so much. I am so incredibly excited to be here with someone that I'm calling my new best friend, by the way. So Rochelle Parham is a seasoned senior level executive who possesses more than 25 years of global strategy and marketing experience for prolific corporations such as eBay, Visa, Digitas, and Citibank. And in addition to all that, she's had significant strategic and analytic decision-making expertise to be able to drive key business performance for a number of different companies. In 2019, she joined West River Group as a managing director. And West River Group provides integrated capital solutions to the global innovation economy with investments focused on technology, life sciences, energy, and experiential sectors. She was previously a general partner of Camden Partners, a private equity firm focused on investing in growth stage global consumer companies. Now look, she's got a very, very extensive background, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of it, but I also want to make sure I give her some time to talk about her own experiences, because we can talk a little bit about her current work, her prior work at Camden Partners, where she served as executive chairman to the board of directors of Shine, a direct-to-consumer oral care companies. And then we can also talk about her prior work as a VP Chief Marketing Officer of eBay. And I want you to know, since I was the eBay queen, I certainly think she probably knew me personally as part of the profile, but we'll talk about the 180 million active eBay users that she really developed the consumer and digital marketing strategies for. She was also responsible globally for all of eBay's brand strategy and brand marketing, internet marketing, and customer relationship management work. She was also responsible for all areas of eBay's North American marketing, including their customer product marketing, loyalty, and relationship marketing. And prior to this, she was head of global marketing, innovation, and initiatives at Visa. So she had 13 years prior to that at Digitas, and she was also the SVP General Manager of the agency's Chicago office. I can't even talk to you about the numerous awards and honors which she has received. And we don't want to spend all this time talking about that because I'm telling you, it would be embarrassing to most of us in the room. But I do want to just say that what is most important and what's really connected me to her, especially as a person who is an advocate of the arts and as an advocate of girls in particular, right, and youth in general, is that she's a strong advocate of empowering female leaders through STEAM programs. Mrs. Parham served on the advisory board of Girls Who Code. She also served on the board of directors for Best Buy since 2018, ELF since 2018, LabCorp since 2016, and Scripps Network Interactive from 2012 to 2018. She holds a double Bachelor of Science degrees in Business Administration and Design Arts from Drexel University, and she became a member of the Drexel University Board of Trustees in 2014. So I think you see why she's my new best friend. And I just want you to welcome her warmly to this. I'm not calling it a fireside chat. I'm calling it a beachside chat because we're fortunate to be here in Martha's Vineyard, making all of you quite jealous right now.
So Cookie, before we get started, so we've become girlfriends, as she said, and one thing that girlfriends do for each other, as you guys know, is we make sure that we don't stumble into bad lighting, which we have just done. So can you grab that little black button right there? You see see the right here.
Oh, this, yes.
I'm just going to make sure that we don't have bad lighting throughout this situation. So hopefully that made it better. That's what girlfriends do for each other. That's what girlfriends do for each other.
All right, so we're going to get right into this. So we have plenty of time for you, the audience, to have some questions for us. So first of all, I want to just ask you in general, because I think we have some synergies in common. Tell me a little bit about your first job when you came out, well, actually while you were in college, some of your college experiences, and how that informed your love of marketing and your love of fashion.
So my first job in high school was I worked in a high-end shoe store. And then I also in college, and so that was in Baltimore. In Philly, I worked in a high-end shoe store as well in Philadelphia when I was in college. But then all of my co-op jobs in college were working for Valentino. And so one of the things that I learned just in interacting with customers is that you really have to understand customer needs. Right. You have to understand what they care about, what's important to them. And when you're doing it right, you can anticipate their needs. Right. And so as a marketer, that's what I've always had to think about. I've not only had to think about what I know that customers need, but also I have to anticipate what they need. And when you can get that, that's really the holy grail.
Right. And those companies in particular are companies like Nordstrom, like Valentino, that are really strong brands, right? People that, brands that we easily identify with, and we can kind of see as soon as you see their products, that's a pair of Valentino shoes, right? That's right. That's Nordstrom, the store. We know that equates to elegance and
great service,
and all of that correct stuff, right?
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about what a brand is, right? Yeah. So in my little, world, I used to say a brand is what people may think or say about you, right? It's what they say about you, especially when you're not in the room. Sure. Just as we were just talking about, right? Yeah. But in the strictest sense of the word, how would you define a brand? And how do you develop it?
Yeah. So how I think about a brand and how I define a brand is I say a brand is a promise you make and keep every day. Mm-hmm. And so even when brands falter, the point that you have to continue to think about is maintaining that promise. and ensuring that you are keeping to that promise every day. And the things that are important about not only having a brand, but building a brand is you have to understand what that brand promise is.
Right.
You have to understand what your brand strategy is, and you have to make sure that you are not only thinking about what that means for today, but also anticipating what that means for the next 18 months or the next 3 years and the next 5 years. Because oftentimes your brand is signaling for what's coming next. You're not
right.
just thinking about
Right.
what you're doing today,
Right.
you're signaling for what's coming next.
And is that different, do you think, from working with a smaller brand or a smaller company versus working with a big old company like eBay or Visa?
Yeah, so you know that it's very, very different. So as Cookie mentioned, I have a startup that I'm a founder and executive chair of. And a lot of what I had to do there was just very different from what I had to do at eBay.
Right.
So keep in mind, at both eBay and Visa, I joined those companies, those brands already existed.
Right.
The other thing that I had to do as the keeper of those brands, I owned both of those brands in my role, is I had to not only ensure that people understood those brands and understood what they stood for, but I had to make sure that people were connected to those brands and felt like those brands were connected to them.
Right.
And so a lot of my efforts were about brand equity and making sure that we were continuing to build our brand equity over time. With Shine, the startup, that was really about building the brand from the ground up.
Right. A little bit of
So-
trust building in that and consistency, right? Is that
And
right?
so
Yeah.
it's about picking a name that makes sense
Yep.
and that people will remember.
Mhm.
It's about making sure that people understand what your brand stands for. But the other piece is differentiating it from what's out there.
Right.
And so understanding the competitive landscape, understanding where your brand fits into that landscape, and how you can differentiate. Because often products, even if they're not the same, sometimes they seem the same.
Right,
And so how
right.
do you actually differentiate your product from what else is
Right.
out there? And that's the hard work and the heavy lifting.
Right.
And a lot of what we're doing is not only trying to build the brand, but also build customers, build revenue, like
Right.
all of these things. You're doing them in conjunction. You're not doing one at a time.
Right,
You
they're not
actually
in
have to
silos.
do it at the same time.
And so how do you do that also, ensuring that your company's, I call that their value proposition, right, and their voice, right, remains authentic, remains consistent, that you're able to do that and you're able to align that in such a way that the tone is always consistent with the brands, that you're not being out of alignment or out of sync with each other, right? Because when you're creating that marketing strategy, you need to make sure that the end user who's going to receive that, who's going to be trying to identify that brand is never going to get lost as to who you are and what you are trying to effect in terms of, or what you're trying to communicate in terms of your brand. How do you ensure that when you're out there creating that?
You have to do a brand check pretty often, and you
Right.
also have to do a brand audit, and then you also have to take a pulse of your customers and just see what they see,
Okay.
and be mindful of it. You have to see how you show up in all of the channels,
Right.
and you have to understand kind of what the perception is. So, for example, when I got to eBay, while we had 100% global brand awareness, right?
Mhm.
That's not easy to do.
Right.
We had 100% global brand awareness. The
Right.
problem is that we had a perception problem.
Hmm.
So people saw
Interesting.
us as old, used garage store stuff
Right.
that you bought at auction. When
Right.
at the time, 70% of the items on the platform were
Brand
brand
new.
new
That's
with
exactly right.
tags,
That's right.
which
That's
meant that we
right.
had a perception
Yes,
problem.
yes.
So a lot of what I was doing as it related to the brand was changing the perception of the brand.
Right.
So my heavy lifting wasn't on helping people to know that we existed. We had
Mhm.
100% global brand awareness. It
Mm.
was about helping people to understand what the brand was today versus the
Mm.
brand that they knew when they interacted with eBay initially.
That's interesting. So that's almost the difference between the hypothesis also and the flip side of also knowing who your customer is, right? And the reality or the proof of who your customer actually is. And the same thing with sort of knowing what your logo should be like and what your brand identity should really be like so that it connects directly to the customer, right?
So we were talking about this earlier, this idea of knowing your customer. So Cookie mentioned Shine, which is this oral care company that is incredible. We have a great product, but there are a lot of oral care products that are out there.
Yep.
So a lot of what we were doing was differentiating, and we built out a really great strategy. And while 50% of our customers are men and 50% are women, as it related specifically to our marketing,
Right.
the people who were responding to our marketing were men.
Right.
That
Wow.
wasn't our hypothesis, though.
Right,
Our
right.
hypothesis was that
This is
women
the-
controlled the pocketbook, women were
Right.
heads of the household,
We do
and
bodies
that,
for our kids.
and that
we
women
make
were
sure
going to
they're
be the ones
healthy. Right.
buying the product and responding. As it related specifically
Mm-hmm.
to our marketing, it was actually men. So then when we go back and we look at the website really catered toward women and an experience for women. So we needed to actually think a little differently about how we showed up on our platform, on our
Right.
website,
Right.
because our audience was a bit different from who we thought it was going to be.
Right.
And we had the same challenge at eBay. At eBay, when I got there, I was told that our average customer was a 50-year-old white man.
Right.
Well,
They
that,
hadn't met me yet, so.
well, that wasn't helpful. That wasn't
Right.
helpful. And so, what I had to figure out is how do I actually make eBay appealing for women? And
Right.
granted, we had 50% of our shoppers were women,
Right.
but as it related to how they used the platform and who used it most frequently,
Right.
it was actually men.
Right.
And the reason was because eBay's platform was built like a transaction. So you would go in and you search. We had the
Mm-hmm. That's right.
best search in the world. You go in and you search and you get your product and you buy it. And that's how men shop. And not
Right.
trying to discriminate against men, but men
Right.
shop very differently from women. What women said was, you know what, I don't find the site appealing. I buy stuff on eBay
Right.
all the time, but I don't always enjoy the experience. And the
Mhm.
reason they didn't enjoy the experience was because there was no browse and discovery. Women like
Right.
to browse, we like to
Right,
discover.
right.
And so we had to
Shop
actually change the
around.
whole platform, particularly the homepage and how you got through to the buy flow to
Right.
actually be enticing for women so that we
Mhm.
built in that notion of browse and discovery.
Right.
Search was still amazing.
Right.
Men could still go in and do their transaction,
Right.
but we tried to make it appealing for women too.
And that actually really goes to the point that you always talk about, which is that, marketing is a marathon and not really a sprint, right? So you constantly have to reinvent your strategy. You have to be creative, you have to be innovative, and you have to think about how you may need to adjust and pivot in order to address new things that you
Constant drumbeat. In the background, you should always be doing you should always be doing marketing. You should always be
Right.
building the brand. In addition to that, though, you should be doing your performance marketing, you should be doing your social and all these other
Right.
things, but you need to always be building the brand.
So you mentioned social, so this is perfect. So here's something that someone said this to me when I thought it really resonated. So everybody's talking about social media. Most people are on it one way or the other, right? So Facebook is the town hall, Instagram is the museum, Twitter is the conference room, and LinkedIn is the study hall. So all social may not be created equal, but there should be something for everyone. So I want to get your thoughts on a couple of things. One, how do you use social media best to amplify your brand? Two, do you need to pay for marketing? Especially because, in this early stage process, the budget is not quite the same as having the budget of eBay or Citigroup or whomever, right? So do you need to pay for marketing on social media or other platforms at this stage? Or if not, at what point do you really start to consider paying for it, right? And the last thing is, how do you optimize growth on social media channels so that you can move that content around and be able to use the algorithms to your best advantage?
That's a heavy question. So I believe most brands, I can't say every brand, but I believe most consumer brands should have a social strategy.
Okay.
And that social strategy is not going to be the same for every brand. So one brand might do phenomenal on Facebook and another brand may not.
Okay.
And really, as I mentioned earlier, marketing is really about test and learn.
Right.
So you do have to test and learn. You have to figure out, how is Facebook playing out for me? What's my cost per acquisition on Facebook? Is Instagram the right opportunity? Should I be thinking about YouTube? How do I think about building videos?
Right.
How do I think about an influencer strategy? Like all of those things need to play into it. And so for one of our businesses, we believe that our initial hypothesis was that we could use a influencer strategy
Right.
that was using micro influencers.
Right.
So not
Right.
using the very, very kind of expensive, very well-known influencers, but using kind of the lesser known influencers. And what we found is it didn't work for us. And so we had to pivot, and then we decided, okay, now what do we do? So we held off on that, but then we went back and we actually found this sweet spot of, they weren't the kind of most famous influencers,
right.
but they were kind of the next tier.
Right.
And while it cost us a little bit more money,
Right.
but because he had such great reach,
Right.
we were able to get to more customers. And actually his customers actually bought the product.
Wow, interesting.
And so
right.
we weren't just getting the brand reach out there, we
Right.
were actually getting the conversions.
Right.
And so it really is test and learn, and it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
So just because one company had success
Right.
doesn't mean another one will.
And I
We
think-
did well on Facebook
Yeah.
for one of my brands, and for another brand, we didn't do well on Facebook at all. And so it really is test and learn.
And I think that's a good point to acknowledge too, that it may work one time, it may not work the next
That's
time, but it
right.
may work again.
It
right?
may
So
work
it's-
again.
Right. So
And you have to
yeah.
optimize, you have
Right.
to come up with that plan, and it could work for 6 months and then all of a sudden fall off a cliff.
Right.
And that might not be your fault. That might be what's happening on the market. It might be
Right.
what's happening on the platform. It might be what's happening with consumers. You just
Right.
never know.
Right.
But you have to be nimble, right? You have to have that agility.
Correct,
And that's not always easy to do when you don't have large budgets,
Right.
but there's ways to think about it even if you have smaller budgets.
So let's talk about that in case, because I don't know exactly who's in the room in terms of the types of business. So a lot of this is going to be contingent upon the types of businesses in the industry. But based on some of your experiences, right, how do you advise prioritizing physical assets, right, such as business cards and flyers and maybe even uniforms and pens or whatever, against digital assets? Because I know you've been in the digital space for a very, very long time, and that may include social media ads and blogs and white papers and how-to guides and all these things that may exist on your website or in any of the other kind of technology that you could utilize. How do you prioritize that when a company is trying to figure out, I need some business cards, but I also really need to have, I want to do a blog, right? So how do you prioritize how founders should use our money?
It really depends on the business.
Yeah.
So some businesses, all of your business or a good chunk of your business may happen at trade shows.
Right.
In which case, at a trade show, you absolutely need business cards, and you probably
Right.
need flyers, and you need great banners, and you probably need a really great video,
Right.
right?
True.
But if your business can't thrive at a trade show, you may not need any of that except maybe the videos. And so it really depends on your business, and
Right.
you just have to do the research, understand other companies that were like yours, understand where they had successes.
Right.
One of the things that a lot of the companies that I work with, one of the things that they do is they talk to each other. So the time
that's
that you
right.
can spend with other entrepreneurs, hearing
Right.
that what worked for them,
Right.
recognizing that you're not really always competitors with these folks.
Right.
Sometimes you all can help each other. And
That's
so
partnership.
just learn from each
Yeah,
other all the
exactly.
time. And don't be afraid to make the introductions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. For one of my companies, we got a list of really great influencers that
Right.
they had successes with. The reason they were willing to share it with us is because we weren't competitive. Like
Right.
we were in completely different markets. And so, it does matter. You should spend some time talking to one another, understanding what works and what doesn't work.
I think that's really critical, because that's actually another way for you to leverage partnerships. And that's just right in your own neighborhood and in your own circle of influence. So I think that's important. I want to pivot a little bit to your experience as a venture capital investor. So when I think about what you might be looking for in a company in which you're considering investing, I would think that there would be a few things that you're evaluating. I'm sure there's a lot, but just to keep it simple here, a few things. Some might be, as you mentioned earlier, whether or not the product or service has been differentiated, right? And whether the product or service is meeting an untapped or unfulfilled need, or whether it has found a unique way of fulfilling that need, and whether or not there's a sizable target market. But you're also looking for a quick way to test that business model, right? And to determine its validity, because the speed at which you're able to pilot this product or service allows you to fail quickly and allows you to recalibrate based on what you have learned. right? So I think the failure piece, as you talked about earlier, is critical because you want to be able to see whether or not, as you mentioned with the influencer strategy, the micro influencer strategy didn't work first time around. You saw that quickly. You were able to go back again and say, okay, it didn't work. But instead of just eliminating that strategy altogether, you said, I'm going to go back and try one in the middle, right? So how important is it for the founders to have done some extensive market research into their customers, how they buy, and the responsiveness to the various marketing channels before getting to the stage at which you're now beginning to look at them for investment purposes?
So one of the words you used was extensive.
Right.
And so I'm going to argue that you may not have the money to do the extensive research,
Okay.
but you need to do some research.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what does that look like then?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
some of it might be data that you might be able to, find, data that you might be able to buy. It might be actually research that you're able to do. There are a bunch of
Okay.
panels that you can be a part of,
Okay.
and there are ways to get information that way. But another good way is just to be able to access your own data. Like what's actually happening on your website, what's actually happening on your marketing campaigns, like really
Metrics.
digging in and understanding and doing that analysis to start to kind of understand what's out there on your own platforms and who's out there and who's using it and how are they using it. And, it doesn't always work, but you can also do customer surveys. A good percentage of customers don't actually participate.
Right.
But for the ones that do, you might get some really good media information. So I
Right.
do think as a marketer, what's important to me is knowing my customer
Right.
and knowing everything about them and learning as much as you can and asking the questions. And sometimes the customer that does the return is your most valuable customer.
Right.
So that you can learn so
Right.
what actually happened? Why are
Right.
you returning it? What didn't
Yes.
you like? How did it show
Yes.
up? One of the things that was important for us at eBay was we wanted to not only have a successful transaction on the platform,
Right.
we wanted to know what happened when it showed up at your door.
Absolutely.
So the product shows up at your door. What was that experience? And I don't mean like all those awesome unboxing videos. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right, no.
But remember at eBay, we
Sure.
weren't shipping you your product.
Right.
The seller
The
was.
seller was,
And
right.
so we needed to know and how did it show up? And how did you feel when it
Was
showed
it
up?
broken when it
Right.
arrived?
And-
Right.
And
that
so
good stuff.
just
Yes,
digging
yes.
into that
Yes,
and understanding
absolutely.
that end-to-end experience, like understanding that customer experience from the time you meet them until the time they might consider returning something, that's the stuff that's valuable.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that because I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a store and I think the response to I think it also informs your customer experience for you, right? So it tells you how you would treat the customers going forward because when they come in and tell you, I'm not happy with X, Y, and Z, you're able to say, you know what, I need to look seriously at the way in which
That's right.
this experience has unfolded, right? To make sure that I'm addressing my customers' needs because I want happy customers, right?
That's exactly right.
And the happy customers are happy, good business, right?
Absolutely.
Profitable business, right?
And
So-
some of the things that we do is like funnel analysis
Yes,
to
right.
understand where customers are actually dropping out.
Right.
So if you learn that you can get them in the front door, whether it's your physical door or whether it's the front door of your website, but they all drop off at the same point.
Right.
So why is that? What actually happened then? Did you ask them for too much information too early?
Right.
Did the content not make sense? Did they realize they didn't love the product? What was it that happened that they started to drop off?
Right.
And doing that funnel analysis and understanding what's happening at all of those different levels
Right.
will help you to get some great information.
That's key. So, because I want to make sure we give a little bit of time for people to ask questions, but I don't want to leave this discussion without acknowledging our current environment, right? So how has the marketing model shifted, excuse me, as a result of the COVID crisis, right? So how should founders approach the acceleration of digitization that this crisis brings with it? It's been estimated that this crisis has accelerated the need for digitization by at least 2 years. So thinking about that and thinking about how businesses may or may not, be really embracing digitization, what does this current market and this current crisis say to you in terms of how funders should approach marketing right now?
So when I just look at the data for the boards that I'm on, each of those companies, and you'll see a lot of companies have seen such a big surge in their e-commerce sales. And it's just because that was the only option, right? Everyone's at home, everyone's shopping online. And then you have, the quick turnaround things that companies have had to do, like Best Buy put curbside pickup. They changed their model to curbside pickup in 48 hours.
Right.
Right. And so you do have to truly understand what's
Mhm.
going on in the market. There's a lot of things that are happening right now, particularly with Black businesses. There's a lot of press about Black businesses, so we should capitalize on that.
Right.
There's a lot of talk about investors investing more in Black businesses, which I think is also an important time. So we are in the George Floyd situation in particular, and his terrible, terrible murder has really
Yes.
caused our new civil rights movement.
Yes. Yes.
And when his daughter said, "My dad will be a hero,"
Yeah.
she was right about that. And the fact is that we really have to seize this opportunity,
Yeah.
each one of us, and use this as a way to catapult everything that we're doing
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
time that we have. It
Yeah.
probably won't last forever, but
No.
we're in a moment right now.
And-
And so,
Yeah.
make sure that your product is tight, make sure your business is tight, make sure your strategy is dead on,
Yep.
and leverage this opportunity to connect to
Right.
potential new customers or to learn more about the customers you have and keep them as repeats.
Right, absolutely. This is definitely a moment to both capitalize on and catalyze the business a little bit more. And part of that, as you mentioned earlier, about some of the business and pivoting, for example, with Best Buy, is where I wanted to go about trying to determine when a fad business really becomes a legitimate business, right? So to your point about takeout restaurants or restaurants that now have takeout, or in the cases of theaters and performing arts centers now really pivoting to completely digital performances. How do you think about creating an entirely new model now because there's a demand for it? So even for these new founders who might be struggling now because they're in this new environment, some of them may have created an athletics company, so that was really contingent, or a gym or something that was contingent upon people being in the space, and now they're not, right? So we know it's all about the pivot, right? But it's hard to tell because this moment is so transient right now. Like, it's so unpredictable right now. We don't really know if we're going to be in this moment for a year or in 5 years, or 6 more months or 3 months. We don't really know. So how do you start to think about this in terms of marketing? Because they still have to figure out, these founders, where to put their monies, how to allocate it, how much to put towards it. Is it a long-term strategy or a short-term strategy? What advice do you give them in this moment of unpredictability?
Yeah, so I wish I had the right answer for
I know,
that.
girl.
And let me tell you, this is a tough one, because one of my companies, actually 3 of my companies in my portfolio are having the best 3 months that they've ever had.
Right. Wow.
That they've ever had.
Right.
And it's because people are at home and they're online and they're
Right.
shopping and all these
Yeah.
things. And then I know that there's some companies that are closed and they're trying
Right.
to figure it all out.
Right.
The other thing that we know is when human beings do something for 3 months or more, it becomes a habit.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
if you
Yep.
completely change people's habits, we've been in a global pandemic, we've all kind of been home for 5 months.
Mhm.
So for those first 3 months, we were forming new habits.
Right.
And now
Right.
the question is, will we keep those habits?
Habits, right.
Right. And so if you used to go to the gym and now you work out solely at home,
Right.
will you go back to the gym? Well, I'd argue that every 20 to 30-year-old probably will.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because they've been breaking all the rules anyway.
Right,
They're the reason we're
right.
still in this. And
Right.
so
Don't talk about them. Don't talk about them.
I won't talk about it anymore. But I'd argue that
Right.
you just have to keep paying attention to
Right.
customer behavior.
Right.
Read as much as you
Right.
can, talk to as many people as you can. But remember, marketing is all about understanding customer behavior.
Right.
And what I did in my early days of my career, I did direct marketing, which was about changing behavior to get you to stop doing this and to start doing this. And so everything we're doing is about understanding customer behavior and delivering on experiences that customers love.
Mhm.
And if you can just keep thinking that way, like, what can I do to delight my customer? Now, what can I do to delight my customer? Now, what can I do?
Mhm.
Like, those are the things that are going to be sustainable.
Yeah. And that, to me, that says it's about remaining innovative, right? And it's always thinking about this being an opportunity, even in the middle of this crisis, right? Not thinking of this as, wow, just, I'm in this pandemic, I'm possibly losing my business, but thinking of this as a wonderful opportunity for you to find something new, for you to create something new and to do something differently, right? So, so what else would you think is a key learning of your experiences with all of your businesses, both those in which you have invested and those in which you have founded, right? So what do you think are key learnings, whether it's about risk tolerance or
I'd say
build
number one
capabilities?
is understanding your customer.
Right.
That's number one. Number two is building a world-class experience. And I'd say number three is don't be rigid. You have to have the flexibility and the agility. You have to know that the market's not always going to be the same way, and that the market's going to change, and that the competitive landscape is going to change too.
Right.
And so, one day you may be on top of the world. You might be, in the automotive industry and doing just fine. And then all of a sudden, a company called Tesla shows up, and
the bottom falls out, right?
and then all of a sudden, people don't drive cars because there's this thing called Uber. And so, so you went from having this great car business to all of a sudden, kids don't even get their licenses.
Right,
and so
right.
you have to
Medallions,
actually
taxi,
figure out how to adjust and to think about what the future of your business looks like. That's why early on when we were talking, I said, it's not just about what your business looks like today. It's really starting to think about, and then what does my business look like in the next 3 years or 5 years? Because that needs to be built into your strategy as you think about how you're going to evolve what you're doing.
And have you been able to partner with any other organizations or entities or individuals, right? And they could be in a for-profit or not-for-profit setting that you think that were sort of untraditional partners for you, people that you would not have normally thought to align yourself with, right? But they've been helpful in developing your brand and furthering your brand and getting your product out on the market, getting your name out there. Because part of it is, and maybe that's even just having an opportunity to speak at certain panels or on certain panels, or being able to have television appearances. But has there been anything that has been really particularly helpful for you that was sort of not expected in your career?
Oh, for me personally?
Yes, personally.
Oh, geez.
It's as a partnership opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of great things. So you mentioned Girls Who Code. So eBay, and with my leadership, was one of the early sponsors of Girls Who Code.
Right.
Resma Sajani is the founder, and she
Love
came
her.
to me and she said, hey, I want to figure out how to teach 1 million girls how to code. Like, that's what she said to me.
Right.
And I said, okay, let's figure it out. And so she told me this concept she had, and I said, well, tell me what we need to do. So I sponsored one of the first code camp for girls. And the reason I tell that story and why that's important is because that happened at the same time that I was running our women's network at eBay. And one of the challenges we had in tech in Silicon Valley in particular is that we couldn't get women to stay.
Right.
We could get them in, but we couldn't get them to stay. And often it's because they didn't see what their future looked like, because there was no woman at the top to role model. And those two things actually aligned really nicely because we wanted, as eBay, to show women that they had lasting and enduring careers in technology. And then we said, and to prove that out,
here's the pipeline.
Here's the pipeline.
There you go.
And so I'd say that's kind of an unlikely example, but it was great for us because it infused a lot of energy on the campus to have these young, smart girls who often came from tougher neighborhoods, who, one girl every night after her class with us, she would teach her father everything she learned. Her father had been out of work for 2 years. He got his next job after her teaching him this as a programmer. And he learned that from his daughter, who was teaching him at night over dinner.
And think also, though, about how that helped eBay's brand.
Oh, absolutely.
Too, because now they're viewed as a company that does good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the unlikely partnership that actually can really be a good and bona fide, helpful partner to you in expanding your brand as well. So that's
Absolutely.
great, excellent, perfect. So I want to make sure that we have some opportunities to answer some questions. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat, because we have a guru here and we
I
don't
don't
want to
know
miss
about
out on that opportunity to have a chance to ask her some questions. Are there any questions there?
But yes, there's one really good question here. How do you get advice on marketing strategies if it's not your area of strength?
So I have a lot of people who actually come to me for this very reason. So there's an incredible entrepreneur in LA. I'm friends with her next door neighbor, and she said, "Oh, you need to meet, Rochelle, because she knows marketing." And she said, "Rochelle, can I just get 30 minutes?" And I sat down with her over Zoom. I sat down with her for 30 minutes, and she just asked me a bunch of questions. I have an email from her right now. I made a couple of introductions for her. And so just find people who are doing what you want to do, or who look like they're doing something that's interesting that could align to your business, and reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to have a conversation. You'd be surprised the number of people who'd be like, sure, 30 minutes isn't that hard. And so you'd be surprised the number of people who might be willing to have that conversation with you. And people talk a lot about networking, and networking needs to be on purpose.
Absolutely.
You need to be deliberate about it, and make sure that you're seeking out the right people and getting good advice. I don't want to say the right advice, because I think that you have to get a lot of different inputs. I don't think that if you spoke to me that Rochelle said this, so do it exactly this way. There's so many nuances and so many things that are unique and special about your particular business. So it's good to get a lot of different inputs so that you can then pull that together and think about what that looks like until you can actually afford a marketing person on your team to actually do that work for you.
Any other questions on that?
Yeah, I believe that he has more questions, but first I want to say thank you to my two sisters. Loving the fact that you guys are up there and you left me out, like really.
Next year,
you can sit right between us.
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity too.
We tried to put some social distance. We've had on masks the whole time we've been together.
I'm looking at you, right? Because I was like, that's not what happened when we talked the other day. But ladies, a phenomenal fireside chat. Thank you. Great nuggets of information for founders.
Beachside.
Beachside. Thank you.
Exactly. Beachside chat. I'm sure the founders have taken away some great information to help them as they look to grow their business, and also looking at ways to really brand yourself. And like you shared, you can do things on a shoestring budget, just you got to be consistent. And so we thank you for that. We're going to ask all the attendees if you can go ahead and finish the fireside chat poll. So the poll is up, and we're going to leave it up for another 30 seconds so you can go ahead and vote. And I wanted to say to you all, just the power of partnership. So this conference was really about bringing people together, having breakout sessions so attendees can talk to the investors and the different speakers. And exactly what's happening on Martha's Vineyard with the two of you amplifies the power of partnership. You just met each other because you're going to be working on this panel together, and now you're girlfriends.
And we have all the same girlfriends, by the way. We actually know all the same people.
Yes, and then I met the two of you because one of my dear friends introduced me to Rochelle, and another friend of my dear friend introduced me to Cookie. And the two of you have become my friends over the last couple weeks and over the last month that we've been talking together. And, people would have thought we've known each other for years. So I want other founders to know that's really the true power of partnership. It's you come together, you have synergy. We're all on this journey together. We're trying to achieve some of the same goals. We have the same desires that we want to leave a positive impact on the space that we occupy. We're here to change the face of the world. We're saying that, hey, we have these great ideas and we're able to make a difference. And we brought in today investors that are passionate about the same things, and they're passionate about investing in female and Black founders. So when we come together in these environments, founders, don't be shy, because you definitely have people here that are interested in helping elevate your business. And so for those that are new to COI Ladder Institute, this is our 7th year. It's our 7th anniversary. We have our annual event on Martha's Vineyard because that is my special place. And I feel that every founder should be able to experience their special place, because it gives you that opportunity to be able to look back, reflect, and then invigorate yourself and start thinking about where you're moving forward. And so that's been a place that I've seen everybody that I've ever invited and all the conferences I've had there, anyone that leaves there, that's one of the things they say. It's like, wow, I got all these great ideas because I was able to just walk along the beach and I just had some space time. So that's the reason why we also brought in some of the founder therapy pieces with Christopher doing the yoga. He does that on the beach every morning in the summer. So if you go to Martha's Vineyard, you could go on the beach and have yoga, and it's just so serene because the water's there and it's the clear sky, and then here you are laying there doing your yoga. So that's an opportunity. The meditation we had with Gail. Founder therapy is so important, and especially in times like these during this pandemic, a lot of us have been tied up in our homes, not too many people to talk to because you're not going into the offices. And it's a time where you can quickly become discouraged and also get depressed. And so we encourage founders to really seek out those things that will help center you and get you back on track. And a part of that is really creating that circle of around you. COI stands for Circle of Influence. So you see that name in COI Ladder Institute, and you also see it in my company name, COI Energy. And I truly believe it takes our circle. Our circle is what keeps us balanced. Our circle is those people that really challenge us and they stretch us, and they help propel us forward. The other thing that our circle does is they keep us honest. So you want to have people around you that are going to always keep you honest, because in order to win in this game we call life, we need to have that type of support system. So we're constantly progressing on this journey. So founders, I hope you had a phenomenal day. I mean, I just was in awe of all of the speakers, even though we selected them because we felt that they were the best fit to get the job done for what we need right now. Right now in this pandemic, we all need help in one way or another. And each of those speakers brought that to the table to really pour into you. And we don't want that to end here. We've created a group for attendees of the conference. It's called the Unleashing Conference Group, Female Founders Group, and it's on LinkedIn. We will send, if you're connected to us on LinkedIn, we'll send you information on that. I want you to really leverage the opportunities and the conversations you had with the investors. These investors really believe in elevating female founders and Black founders. And so they weren't here just to show up and just to check off something on their list. These are investors that are really committed to this journey. So I hope you felt that when you were speaking to them today. I also wanted to talk about Silicon Valley Bank. I bank with Silicon Valley Bank. Yvette did a phenomenal job. They are a unicorn sponsor. They believe in what is needed to help businesses move forward. They believe in female founders. I mean, if you only have $500, I suggest you consider opening up an account with Silicon Valley Bank. They are about the business of elevating female founders. And as you can see in her presentation, they show different ways that they can help you. So it's not always about going to venture capital right away because you may not be ready. And that's what yesterday taught you. Yesterday was all about the foundation. What do you need to be ready for investment? A lot of us aren't ready for investment, but we want investment. So we got to get ready for investment in order to be invested in. So she gave you some other resources that you can use. During this pandemic, a lot of people never thought about their bank, but they realized it was the easiest way to get small business loan was during this pandemic because you didn't have to do much. So now you can see that the banks can be a phenomenal partner with you. And then the chakras we learned from Christopher. I mean, really taking time to center yourself. So today has truly been amazing for me. I don't want to even take out the story. Like when you listen to the founder story, we always choose to have at least one founder a day come on and share their story. And listening to Stephanie today, I know many of you can relate to what she experienced. And then she said, someone asked her the question, are you fundraising? And she says, no, I'm putting that on the side now. And I'm focused on revenue because she became a little disenchanted with the process. So as female founders and as Black founders, we know it's really difficult in fundraising. So we've learned and we've met and we've engaged with people that are really going to help us get to where we need to be. So take advantage of that. I think that's pretty much it that I needed to go over. So I want to again thank our speakers today. Thank Rochelle and Cookie for this phenomenal fireside chat. I want to thank our sponsors. And so the sponsors that we have, as I mentioned, Silicon Valley Bank, they are a unicorn sponsor. We also have our partnership sponsors, which is SAP.io and Morgan Stanley. And our seed sponsors, Cooley and Grasshopper Bank, our startup sponsor. So we thank each and every one of our sponsors because it's because of them that we're able to bring to you this great content. And then you can go out and share it with your community. This, everything that has been presented today, except for the breakout sessions, we have been live streaming on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube in order to access that information. And then this group that we've created on LinkedIn, you'll be able to get some of the content in that group. So we'll make the content from the conference available there as well. I'm going to pass this back over to Austin for him to really close out if there's anything else. And let's see, is there anything else that someone had? I think we covered all the questions.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else to add, actually. Thank you so much, everyone. I just want to, say again, it has been a really, really great day. I get a chance to watch and see everything that's happening. So, it's been extremely valuable, and we hope that all of you have had a really, really great experience today. Come on back tomorrow. We're going to do it all over again tomorrow. So feel free, log in, check in. We're going to get started right at noon. We've got a really, really, really great lineup again tomorrow. So feel free, grab your digital agenda, come on back tomorrow. We're going to do it all over again. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.